Hey.
There's been less.
It's been only Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Just you and Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one time. Maybe there's somebody else will come creeping in. I don't know. Let's see if I can get this better. Well, that'll work. I don't know where my stand is. Okay, this is good. This will be fine. Okay. Special treat for you tonight.
Okay.
And those who are not here will miss out. But they can always catch me live or on Facebook, okay? Keys to Infinity. Here we go. We probably have done this before, but I don't think we did it inside. When I say inside, meaning like, look at the text itself. Here you go. Unos, dos, tres, cuatro. Okay? Cuatro. So I love this Torah. I taught it in the Sukkah, in Sukkah's time, with the people around, and it was so bizarre. As a matter of fact, one of the guys says, "Can you say it over again? Can you say it over again? Can I hear it again? You got to do it again." So this is time we're going to do it again, that everybody can go ahead and have a grasp. And I always start off this Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, is it's amazing that we have our 5 books of Moses, and we go through from Genesis to all of the 5 books, and all the way to the end, and we really don't know, or really don't find out what the Torah is until the end. That's what's like so bizarre, okay? And what do I mean by that? Well, let's see. If we look at the last 5 verses of the Torah, it starts with, right here, you see on your pages, "So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of God." So the question obviously is, that they ask, right there, could Moses have already died when he wrote and Moses died? Okay? It's hard to be dead in writing.
It's his book.
Okay. Right? It's his book.
He knew it was coming.
Well, yes, that the time did come. It did. And, but the issue is, how could Moses have wrote it? If you're going to write, and Moses died is past tense. It has to be true. The Torah is true. It can't be he's still alive and writing died. Okay? Wrote Moses will die, another story. It's Moses died there. Okay? When he wrote and Moses died. How can? Rather, the first answer is Moses, so it says, and Moses died there. How could it be that Moses wrote it and he had already died? Rather, Moses wrote up until this point, and from there onward, Yeshua wrote. That is one answer. Okay? In other words, Yeshua finished the last 5 verses from and Moses died, because Moses could not have written it. But there's a big problem. Rabbi Meir says, is it possible that the Sefer Torah that Moses wrote was lacking something? In other words, if Moses finished the Torah up until this verse, right? And because he said on the day of his death, actually before he died, he gave a complete Sefer Torah to the tribe of Levi. He gave a complete, he says, here you guys, I'm handing the scepter. Yeah. I'm handing the baton. Right? Here it is. When he did that, all the other tribes went, whoa, what do we, chop liver? So he had to wing-dang a Sefer Torah for each and every tribe. He gave to each and every tribe before he died a whole Sefer Torah. Okay? And the question is it a whole Sefer Torah he gave them? Or he said he gave it, here you guys, 12 scrolls, each tribe. By the way, there's going to be, after I pass away, there's going to be a recall that Yeshua's going to have to come and fill out the last 5 verses. Okay? When he gave them a Sefer Torah, he says, take this Sefer Torah. The whole thing was complete. Okay? It was not lacking anything. The 5 verses were there.
What does Sefer mean?
Sefer means book.
Oh.
Take the scroll, Torah scroll. Okay? Take the Torah scroll, right? And it meant a whole Torah scroll. A complete Torah scroll. Okay? So Moses gave a complete Torah scroll to every single one of the tribes. before he passed away. It was not lacking the last 5 verses, that they needed to do a recall, that Yeshua had to come and fill it out. So rather, what is the answer? And you might have heard this answer before. Rather, the Holy One dictated it to Moses, right? Rather, the Holy One dictated it, and Moses wrote it in tears. Now notice in the parentheses right there, very important, the word bedima. Bedima. It's a very important key word, okay? That's how everybody translated this, because the word demaot means tears. Okay? So rather, Moses is, by the way, just a little backtrack. How was the whole Torah written? So Moses would go into the tent and he would have his blank parchment and his ink, his quill, right? God would be there with the prophecy and, so to speak, show him God's book. And Moses would look and letter for letter write it down. So in other words, God had his book and Moses would write it down letter for letter. That's how it was done through the hand of Moses. The hand of Moses did write it out. But it was God showing him letter, word for word. Okay? So God dictated it and Moses wrote it in tears. Now the question is, most people go, oh, that's so cute, it's so meaningful, it touches my heart. So he wrote it in tears because he was passing away. You know, we get into all kinds of ideas and thoughts and emotions run through us, and then we just leave, and then we leave it at that, right? But there's a question. Look at this. These holy words do not seem to have any meaning. In other words, there's a problem. There's a problem with it. What's the problem? Rashi asks simply, could Moses have already died? For it is impossible to say that he was alive when he wrote and Moses died. We got that. One must say that he was dead, which makes Rashi's question a good one, right? Because if Moses died, that means he's dead, right? So who wrote those last 5 verses? We're still got a problem. Who wrote it? So you can assume, okay, if it says and Moses died, that means Moses is dead. But how did Rashi answer it? Now, that was a great question. How did Rashi answer it by saying that Moses wrote it in tears? Does the fact that he wrote it in tears help? Right? In other words, who cares what ink Moses used? So he used lemon juice, tears, or black ink, blue ink, red ink, white ink. Who wrote it? Right? So if you say he wrote it in tears, does it answer the question? Because the idea, the implication of the question was he could not have written that and been alive. Right? You get it? He could not have been alive. And so the answer is that, oh, he wrote it, that means he's still alive. So he's writing it with this kind of ink instead of black ink. Got it? Who cares what color ink he's using? The original question still applies. How did he write and Moses died while he was still alive? We're stuck. We're stuck. The fact that Rashi answers with tears touches our hearts, but it didn't really answer the question because Moses could not have been alive and wrote and Moses died. Yes, you have a question.
I guess my question is, but why not? I mean, he was of a stature, a prophetic man. He's got the message, but he's got to complete the task. But he's going to die at this.
You're absolutely right if it was any other book. If it was any other book like Harry Potter or whatever have you, you can write whatever you want. You have total poetic license. The issue here is the Torah is totally true. That means at the time, whatever's being written is absolutely true. It can't be something that it's talking past tense or it's going to be future tense while the guy's still alive. It can't be. It's not. The Torah has to be true. Every letter, every word is completely 100%.
I see your point now.
So if it's true, it can't be.
It can't be.
It should be Moses. I will die. Moses is going to die in the plains of Moab. That'd be fine. It can't be died past tense and he's still alive.
Okay.
That would be not true.
I see your point.
It would be not true. The Torah has to be true. It's not Harry Potter. It's not Star Trek. It's not whatever science fiction book or whatever is your favorite type of story. Okay? There you can do whatever you want. Here it's true. It's got to be true.
But if he's just transcribing what God gave him to transcribe,
Well, then you gotta
You're
go
touching.
back-
You're touching on something great.
yeah.
We're gonna get it to his
But
words.
you're still at the point that you said, it's got to be true at the point. That
Right. Right. Even if he's transcribing it letter for letter,
Yeah.
it can't be.
Yeah,
I'm alive. How am I writing that I died while I'm alive? It
because-
can't be. I don't care what your but your letters are. It's got to be true. It's emanating total truth in the here and now, in the present. How can I be putting this down an untruth? It's an untruth. Because I'm not dead. How can you say Moses died? I'm not dead. Here I am. Okay? Let's see how it says, and it could, what you did touch upon
on
something.
Yom Kippur, who will live, who will die, and it's written, and
It's written, and who will live, who
Yeah,
will
who
die.
will
Wrote Moses will die. If he wrote Moses will die, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It's past.
he died.
Okay?
but he has already been told he can't enter
Yeah.
Canaan. So
Yeah, so I got a tent for you. I got a little beach place here. I got a little house. You got a beach front. Yeah. Okay. Here's how we go. This is just one little entrance into the whole field of where we're going to understand and explore. Okay, this is indeed how it was. For it is an amazing thing to everyone how the Torah preceded the creation of the world by 2,000 years. It comes from a verse that it's known that the Torah was before the creation of the world by 2,000 years. It's an interesting kind of thing. Why 2,000 years? There's a verse. The verse is from Proverbs that the Torah is speaking about God, and it says, I was his craft tool day. I was God's crafts tool, the Torah is saying. Haiti uman etzlo yom. Haiti shashuim etzlo yom. I was his, almost his play tool. By him day. Yom. Yom means day. So the verse says, I was his tool day. A day in the life of God is known to be 1,000 years. So day, 1,000, another day, 2,000. We know from this verse that the Torah was written 2,000 years before the creation of the world. The blueprints of creation, we know that the Torah is the blueprint of creation. But that has a problem. 2,000 years before the creation. The question is, and I know you guys have thought about this, right? For how were all of the holy stories of the Torah written then? About the creation of the world, Adam and Eve, Noah, the holy forefathers, and all the other things from Bereshit, in the beginning, until Le'enei Kol Yisrael, the last words of the Torah, the eyes of all Israel. Okay? These events, those events, had not yet occurred. Even more, okay, so in other words, okay, I know what you're thinking. Okay, still, God wrote the Torah 2,000 years before creation, but he knew what was going to happen. He knew everything, so he wrote it. Yeah, but there's another problem. Even more problematic is the fact that death only entered the world with the sin of Adam. For had he not sinned, there would be no death. For he had free will. Man, Adam, in the Garden of Eden, was the creation of free will. He could choose to or choose not to. You know, most people think that free will is I get to do what I want to do. Free will is when, you know, you have a will inside of you. Somebody just said this. I heard this. Pretty unique. This Shabbos, past Shabbos. Free will is where your body's saying, eat the ice cream, and you go, no. Okay? That's free will. Okay? Free will is where you want, and you can stop yourself. That's real freedom. Freedom is like, yeah, I want to just go eat ice cream or to play or whoa. That's not free will. You're just like, you know, almost on automatic pilot, whatever your whim comes up on your mind. You're not really directing anything in a certain sense. So we know Adam was a creature of free will. He could choose to eat from the tree of knowledge, and he could choose not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Very important ingredient in creation. Very important, free will. So how is the topic of death written in the Torah? So far in advance. For instance, it says in the Torah, and so died. It also says, and when man dies in a tent. In other words, the Torah preceded creation 2,000 years. It wrote about death. Wait a minute. Adam comes in the Garden of Eden. He could have chosen to eat from the tree, and he could have not chosen to eat from the tree. And what happens if he did not eat from the tree? He would not have died. There would be no death. Right? So then, how could God have written 2,000 years before creation and Adam died? Or this person died, or so-and-so died, or when a man dies in a tent. Okay? Adam had not yet sinned, this 2,000 years before creation. Even though everything is foreseen by God, still we have the rule, permission is granted. As it says here in the note, permission is granted for individuals to act as they choose. Okay? In other words, if Adam is a creature of free will, and he could have chosen not to eat, and therefore not die, so how can it be the Torah has written in it, and so dies? Okay? Good question. So basically it's like all of the things that happen throughout the entire Torah.
Eve ate apple first.
Yes, she ate, and then she gave it to Adam.
Well,
right?
I mean, you don't do what your wife asks you to do. You're in trouble.
My father-in-law says, she ate from the tree and she became 200 feet tall. And she says, eat this, right? All of a sudden he comes like, you've changed, right? Right? So, that's how he put it. There's a lot that goes into that sin in the Garden of Eden that is so... And it wasn't an apple, by the way.
Well, yeah, it was,
It's a four-way argument, would you believe it? Right? Four-way argument what the tree of knowledge of good and evil is. Right? Some say it was the wheat, some say it was the grape, some say it was the fig, and some say it was some say it was the etrog. The etrog is what we use in the shaking in the sukkah.
I thought they said it was a pomegranate.
No one says it was a pomegranate.
I heard it somewhere. It was a pomegranate.
Wow, that's an interesting person who brings that down. I've never heard that. Only these four, okay? Which correspond to the four worlds that we have. Asiya, Yetzirah, Bria, and Atzilut. Anyways, the four realms of creation. I heard a phenomenal idea that according to one opinion, the etrog, right? The etrog, we call it the citron, I think, or whatever, right? All the trees in the Garden of Eden, when God says, okay, I want the trees, the bark, he said, the eighth has to be the fruit. In other words, he wanted the bark to taste like the fruit itself. In other words, a peach tree, the bark would be edible and taste like peach. And, and whatever fruit, mango, whatever. Any fruit, he wanted the bark to taste like the fruit itself. Eitz pri, ose pri. Okay? So the trees had a meeting, secret board meeting, right? And an executive board meeting, right? And they say, if we make our wood, our bark, our trunk taste like our fruit, they're all going to eat us up and there won't be any of us left. So they made a unanimous decision, no, we're going to make it taste like wood. We're going to go wood flavor for the bark and the fruit will taste like the fruit. Okay? All right, later they were cursed because of that. Okay? When God said to Adam, because you sinned, cursed be the land. God went to the land and cursed the land. Okay, because what? Things were fishy already in the Garden of Eden on day 3. This was day 3. The trees made this decision. There was one fruit that says, I'm not in it. I'm not taking part of this. And that was the etrog. The etrog says, I'm going to go with what God said, and we're going to make the bark taste like... Now, I haven't tasted any bark of an etrog tree to test it out, but they say that this was the tree of knowledge of good and evil, interestingly enough. Okay?
Is this in the Mishnah?
It was brought down... I heard Rabbi Masri over by a congregation, Beth Rambam, he said it over. First time I ever heard it, I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. I don't know where he got it from, okay? Midrash, Zohar,
Wikipedia.
I don't think so. That would be pull down something big. You pull that from Wikipedia, okay? No one would ever think that up.
Actually, I think I heard the pomegranate on the History Channel.
Well, the pomegranate History Channel is wrong, and I can definitely say that with 100%
I
confidence.
believe you. I'm just saying I think that's where
They
I got it
just,
from.
well, the idea of why people think it was an apple was because when they translated the Torah into Latin, right, the word for in Latin for fruit and apple were the synonymous. So when King James translated it from Latin into English, so then they used the apple. They went with the apple. That's why everybody got mistaken that in their head that thinking it's an apple. In any case, it doesn't matter. They ate from it, and of course, God says, don't eat from that tree, because the day you eat from that tree, you're going to die. And so therefore, through Adam eating that, he brought death into the world. But had he not eaten, there would be no death. And also, all of the stories, the saying applies to what we read about just before that. All of the stories of Noah and Abraham, they're making choices. Choices can go very random. How could God be writing something 2,000 years when really free choice is given? You can go this way, that way. It's a variable situation. So this is how it is. This is amazing. Are you ready for this? Buckle your seatbelts, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. Okay? The truth is that the Holy Torah was originally created as a mass of letters. Bizarre. This is how my father-in-law explains it. I want you to imagine a random alphabet soup in the sky. Okay? So the idea of letters, by the way, the Torah, we say, is the blueprint of creation. But in order to make the Torah, the blueprint of creation, you need letters. The letters came before the Torah. Letters, I look at, and I always tell people, they are primordial energy fields. A letter is a vibration. A letter is a sound. And the letters in Hebrew specifically, with their shapes and their sounds, have certain vibrations that are very, very powerful. So if you look at it, really, the way we go about our daily lives is all about, everything's about energy and information. So if you look at it as the Torah, in its primordial sense, was a random array of energy and information. Now, he calls it, and what we do call it, is a mass of letters. Okay? So, the Torah, the truth is that the Holy Torah was originally created only as a mass of letters. Random letters. Okay? All the letters from in the beginning until, that's the first word, Bereshit, in the Torah, until in the eyes of all Israel were not arranged into the words that we see today, such as, in the beginning God created, or go from your land, as it says, Lech Lecha, this week's Parsha, where God tells Avram, Lech Lecha, etc. Rather, all these words were all mixed together. Something called a primordial ocean, a sea of energy and information. Then, picture the alphabet soup in the sky. Whenever something happened in the world, then these letters arranged themselves into patterns of words, and a story was created from the event. In other words, when Adam, for instance, here he says, with the creation of the world and the story of Adam and Eve, as Eve drew to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so the letters came and fell into place to form the words of the storyline that we have. Okay? In other words, it was random, letters, energy, information, and then when she made the choice, so then those letters came and fell into the storyline that we have. Okay? Those letters drew close to one another and formed those letters that relate this event. Likewise, when someone died, the words were formed and so died. So too when other events occurred, like Noah and everything that he did. When he came out from the ark, what did he do? When he came out, he offered sacrifices, yeah. He also, what did he do? He planted a vineyard. He planted grapes. He drank wine. And then here he was naked in the tent. Then all those letters formed what we have in the form of the Torah that we have now. Okay? Had a different event occurred, the letter combinations would have been different. For the Holy Torah is the wisdom of God and has no end. Okay? So now, interestingly enough, if you think about it, the word Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, it's an amazing thing. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, they were what we call in Hebrew tamim. Tam. Tam is tough mem. That's how it is spelled in Hebrew. Tam, tamim, tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. Actually, it's in this week's parsha also. God tells Abraham, be whole. Whole. Yaakov ish tam yoshev olim. Yaakov, a whole person. Okay, that's tam. Okay? Meaning simple also, they translate it as. Not complicated, not overthinking, not sophisticated. God says, you just do. You don't overthink things. You never run into people who overthink things? Whoa. Okay? So, the bizarre thing was, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden were tamim. They were tam. They were whole. And what happened? Comes the serpent, has a dialogue with Eve. They bring down something pretty interesting. The serpent comes and starts the dialogue with Eve and says, all these trees you cannot eat. And of course, he starts the conversation. And Eve says, well, this tree, we can't eat it, we can't touch it. She added words. According to some Mefarshim, she added the words of we can't touch it or we die. So then the Midrash brings down the serpent and says, oh yeah? And he shoved her right against the tree. And she touched the tree and she goes, I'm not dead. Ooh, you're not dead now, madam. So maybe you can eat the tree. Do you know why? God does not want you to eat the tree, right? Right?
Did they even understand what dead meant?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So the idea really here is that the fascinating idea was they were so whole that the idea of, I'm just trying to remember what the Maharal said. It was an amazing thing. So the serpent says, because the idea here of eating from the tree, let me just think for a second. The serpent says, oh, no. If you eat from that tree, then, you're missing out. You're missing out. That's one of the greatest lines, right? To get any advertising, you're missing out. You're missing out. God doesn't want you to be like him. Because if you eat from that tree, then you will be the Jedi, right? Then you will be whole. You're not whole now. He convinced them that they were not whole now. Okay? You don't have everything. If you don't have that, you're missing. So they bought into the idea of what the serpent was telling them, that they're not whole. It's a very huge thing. Our thoughts create our reality, especially in such a sublime state as the Garden of Eden. Whichever way they're going to go is going to have huge ramifications. This was such a huge ramification that they bought into what the serpent was saying, that they're not whole. They ate from that tree of knowledge, and because they ate from that tree of knowledge with the idea that they were not whole, they were not already complete, then you're right. You're going to have to live a life of lack. They were not lacking anything. The serpent convinced them they were lacking. They bought into the idea of lack, and therefore measure for measure. It's huge what I'm saying. They bought into the idea of lack. The whole universe only goes by measure for measure. As you believe, so you get. So they believed they were lacking. You're right, you're lacking. If you take the words tam, tough, and mem, which means whole, and you just switch the letters, you end up with the word mate. That means dead. Okay? So once again, what we're saying is, when Adam and Eve reached for that tree, so the letters of mem, tough, came down, formed the Torah that we have, as opposed to if they didn't eat, it would have been taf mem, whole, complete. Okay? And this goes with all of the stories, as they were in the desert, all the stuff that was going on in the desert. When they were in the desert, what do you think? They had all the rest of the story? You know what happened in the desert? They were 40 years in the desert. A lot of stuff went on, right? They were complaining about, the water, the manna, Korach's rebellion, the spies. They didn't have that until they got to the event. They didn't have it. They only had Breshit, Shmot, right? And a little bit of and Vayikra maybe after, right? And then a little bit of, they didn't have the whole thing. As the storyline, as the whole drama was playing out, the Torah was forming the letters. One rabbi I heard say, definitely there's life on other planets. There's a proof of that there's life on other planets. You know that? You ever wonder what the Torah says about life on other planets? Is there any proof? Right? So, there is a proof of life on other planets. It's actually in the Song of Devorah. Devorah, who was a prophetess in the book of Judges, made a war against Sisera, called on all the forces of the universe, come help us against this wicked kingdom and this really bad, evil general. Right? And at the end, of course, there was a tremendous miracle, and they defeated the enemy army, and Devorah sang a song. And in that song, she says this funny thing, cursed be Meroz, the name of a place, and those that live there. Because obviously they didn't come to help her in the war. And they ask in the Talmud, where's Meroz? We did our map quest. We did our Wikipedia. We did our Google's maps. It's not in Waze. It's not anywhere. There's no place called Meroz we know of. Where's Meroz? So they ask one sage, and the sage says it's a planet. So they deduce from there, if the sage says it's a planet, and the song says, cursed be Meroz and those that live there, that means somebody be dwelling in Meroz, this other planet. Now, the idea here is that one rabbi says, okay, we'll accept there's other planets, there's life on other planets, but it would be impossible, unthinkable that God would not also give them a Torah. In other words, they have a Torah. It might not be in the form like ours. Maybe they'd have a googie googie doing shmoogie googie, and the letters would form, and googie googie did shmoogie googie, okay? Or whatever. It would have a different form. They would have a Torah, but it would be different. It would probably, of course, the deeper level of the Torah with all of the lessons, and with all of the deep mystical and spiritual components are there, will be available, okay? Because the Torah has many layers, okay? So, to go on here, so we're getting an idea of what the Torah is, okay? It turns out that when the time came for Moses to die, the entire Torah, up until so Moses died, had already been arranged into words. For all these events had already transpired, and the letter combinations fell into the storyline that we have. Only the letters of the words, so Moses died, until, in the eyes of all Israel, the last 5 verses of the Torah, had not yet been arranged into the words. Why? Because Moses was still alive. In other words, it was still random letters. However, it was necessary for Moses to write all of the words of the Torah, as it says, take this Sefer Torah. Moses says to all the Jewish people, take this Sefer Torah, meaning it's a whole Sefer Torah. Which means that it needed to be complete. And furthermore, it is called by his name. It is called Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant. It doesn't say Remember the Torah of Moses and Yeshua. Moses wrote the entire Sefer Torah. Okay, we still got an issue here. Those last 5 verses, how are we explaining it? So what then did God do? He told Moses the letters that remained as they were still intermingled, jumbled, so to speak, without being combined into words. It was gibber. It was gibberish. So this is how Moses wrote them. Later, when he died, these letters immediately formed the words from the verse, and Moses died. So I guess you can think it's kind of mystical that in each Torah scroll, those last 5 verses were just before Moses died. He gave it to each one of the tribes. They opened it up. They looked at the end of the Torah, and there's jumbled letters. And then after he died, all of a sudden, all those letters took on the form of what we have now. Okay? They must have moved on the cloth. Okay? So, thus Moses did write the entire Torah, and it is correct to say, take this Sefer Torah to be called by his name, for he really did write the entire thing from beginning to end. It was Moses. Okay? So this is what Rashi wrote. Now, it doesn't understand the whole idea of tears, right? Here we go. This is what Rashi wrote, that God dictated it to Moses, and Moses wrote it, however, so as to avoid the problem as to how Moses wrote, he said, and Moses died. How do we say that? While still being alive. Rashi explains that Moses wrote it in tears. Now, the word tears, I've said, was called the word dima. Dima has another term, means another halachic law, ramification in law. Okay? The word dima also has the meaning of admixture, as in hamidameh or truma midma'as, which means what? Right? If truma, truma means priestly tithes. Everybody would have their crops. They would have to separate from their crops, right? A tenth of their crops they give to the Levite, right? And then they would give to the Cohen, and the Levite would also give to the Cohen. It's called tithes. That's consecrated food. It's only for the Cohen. Okay? What happens if that tithe accidentally becomes mixed with non-regular food? Regular food for the Israelite. That's called an admixture. Okay? It's called midmaas. It becomes mixed. In other words, sanctified food becomes mixed with sanctified food. Oops. Okay? So it's called damai, which means an admixture. So when he says midmas, or Moshe wrote it bidama, it doesn't mean tears. It doesn't mean tears. It means he wrote it jumbled. Okay? It means he wrote it totally mixed. Okay? So that's what it means. So once again, to come back now. What is the Torah? Okay? The Torah is unbelievably energy through those letters. The letters are very, very powerful. Each letter has unbelievable meanings behind every letter in the Torah. As a matter of fact, I will not end there. I will bring you the very first thing that the Baal Shem Tov mentions in Genesis. Okay? The first thing in Genesis that he brings down, that's brought down, the person who the Baal Shem Tov never wrote anything. Okay? But his Talmidim did, they wrote down what he taught, his teachings. And somebody compiled together according to the parsha of the week based on his teachings. And he says like this: when the Mashiach comes, speedily, please, Hashem, right, in our days, he will expound upon the letter combinations of each word in the Torah. In other words, he'll take the word Bereshit, and he'll put the letter here, first letter here, and he'll make combinations. You ever done combinations with words before? Right? He's going to take each word on the Torah and recombine each letters to form new ideas from each one of those words. From beginning to the end, from the very first word through the entire Torah. That's going to be one long class. Probably be a really good podcast. Probably real popular. Okay? Like one word at a time. Don't forget the word Bereshit. Just the word Bereshit, by the way. Shimon Bar Yochai, the sage, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he was the one who was 13 years in a cave, learning from Elijah the prophet all the esoteric meanings of the entire 5 books of Moses. He wrote the Zohar, right? He wrote a sefer called Tikkune Zohar, which means, like, I guess you call it rectifications of the Zohar. He took the one word Bereshit, and there's 70 chapters, and he recombines 70 times that one word. One book, a book like this, though, on one word. Okay? One word, Bereshit, just to recombine it. Okay? There's a lot of depth in this. Okay? So the Mashiach will come speedily, and he's going to take Bereshit, and he's going to show you, whoa, whoa, whoa. This expounds into unbelievable meanings. And go to the next one. Bereshit bara, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Right? And each one, he'll expound the letter combinations of each word in the Torah from the beginning to the end. Then he will join the entire Torah into one word. Okay? How do you do that? Okay? So that the letter permutations will be without number. And then he will expound upon all the combinations. So somehow, he's going to be able to make this into some unbelievable red pill. Okay? One red pill. Okay? That you're going to have an unbelievable awakening, because really, we say from the beginning, the first letter of the Torah to the end of the Torah is one long name of God. It's one revelation. A huge thing. So the Baal Shem Tov always was into the letters. We learned that in the beginning. The Baal Shem Tov used his famous technique of meditation, which you could try this at home, okay? That he used from the combination of Noach and the ark. You know, Noach in the ark, he had to build an ark because there was going to be a flood. And he says, when he gives them the dimensions in building the ark, you've got to make 3 stories for the ark, lower story, middle, upper. And then he says, Sohar taseh lateva, you have to make a shining or a window for the ark. It's an argument if it's a window. Some people will say it was a luminous stone. But the Baal Shem Tov, you know, one thing that he did was he made the Torah relevant for us in the here and now, all the time. It has to have a relevance. So, what's the relevance of Noach? What would you think, right? I gave a class like this last year. How are we going? We're good. So what's the relevance of Noach, right, for us here and now? The Torah is not a history. Even though God used the history, but yet you're talking about the unlimited creative intelligence of the Creator, right? He could weave even into history all the relevance for us in the here and now to have a connection with the divine. So he says the word sohar taseh lateva makes a shining. The word for teva also means in Hebrew word. So when you can look at it literally, make a shining. Sohar means shining for the ark, which means either a window or a luminous stone, because you got to see inside there. But for the relevance of us for here and now to connect is make a shining for the word. The same word for ark means word in Hebrew. So really he would look at it as make the words to shine. So that he goes into the idea of each letter has 3 different levels. Just like the ark had 3 levels, each letter has 3 different levels. It has worlds, physical, souls, kind of us, and it has godliness. So we have to take from the physical and we take it up into godliness. And how do we do that? So by going through the letters, when we pray, when we learn Torah, to using it as a meditative experience, that each letter make it to shine. Can you imagine now the Beit? Do you know what the Beit looks like? You guys know what Hebrew? You guys ever take Hebrew? The Beit, right? If you look at the Beit. Now, this is how I initiate some of my students with this, okay? Because my father-in-law is teaching me this. I'm like going, what? Are you crazy? Every single time I'm praying the entire prayer service, I got to have these shining letters, right? Yes. I'm like, come on. Every time I learn to open up a chumash, and I'm looking at Hebrew, I got to imagine the letters shining, every single one. He says, start with the Beit of Baruch. Okay? So I said, okay, start with the Beit of Baruch. I think I'm on the Reish now. Beit Reish of Baruch, I'm on the Reish, okay? It's been like 35 years, okay? No, so in any case, I look at it this, I help my students to understand. Imagine a door, a closed door. And on the other side of the door is infinite light. And the only thing is there's a keyhole. And the keyhole is not like the keyholes we have. This keyhole, you could see through the keyhole, like, the olden days. Now imagine the keyhole is the shape of a letter, the letter Beit. And can you imagine now infinite light is shining through, and your impression is the letter Beit. And then you can do it with a resh, and then a vav, and then a chaf sofit, right? And that's just the word baruch, okay? Now this technique, I happen to say, that I've been practicing for a long time, is the most unbelievable practice that I cannot even describe to you what pops into your head in this practice, okay? You should go try it if you want to. I told this to some lady. She emailed me that night. She says, it was terrifying. The letters became alive and they started talking to me, right? And she said, don't do that anymore, Rabbi, right? Okay, I guess I went too over. But the idea here is the letters are very dynamic and the sounds are very dynamic. Moshe Rabbeinu did not kill the Egyptian by strangling him or throwing him off a scaffold, right? He did it with letter combinations, the Word of God, a name. So the Zohar says, some people say it's a 42-letter name. The Baal Shem Tov I saw saying it was a 3-letter name. Letters are energies. Letters are vibrations. They create. Okay? We create. Our minds create. Our words create. Our actions create. We're always creating reality. So the words are very powerful and the letters are very powerful in terms of their creative ability. Okay? There was one story somebody just told me now, my partner just told me now, that they're sitting in shul and two guys of the Baal Shem Tov's synagogue, and they're arguing with each other, right? They're getting into some argument about something. And when it gets so real heated, it got real heated. It got heated at one point where one guy said to the others, I want to rip you open like a fish. You're so thick, you're so dense, you're not getting it, whatever. So the Baal Shem Tov heard that. He goes, here, my friends, my holy brothers, come here. And he joins hands with them. He says, let's join now in a circle. And he says, I want you to just close your eyes, right? And they closed their eyes for a moment. And all of a sudden they had this whole vision of that one guy was actually ripping the other guy's kishkas out. And he opens their eyes and he says, you see, your thoughts and your words have tremendous power in the spiritual realm, okay? So the idea here is the Torah, by the way, is still being written, okay? The letter combinations are still falling, okay? We know this because in the book of Numbers, there is two backward nuns in the middle, about the third parsha of the book of Numbers. Weird. It's in the Torah scroll. Backwards or upside down nuns. And there's two verses in between these two nuns. And they say, this is a whole sefer unto itself. These two verses. So really it's not 5 books of Moses. It really becomes 7 books of Moses because there's Bereshit, right? Shemot, there is Leviticus, and there is in the book of Numbers, there's 3 books. The beginning to the first nun, inverted nun, the 2 verses, and then the rest of the book of Numbers. So just in the book of Numbers, there's 3 books. And they say this one book in the middle, right, is going to unfold in ways and letter combinations where our lives, we're going to see our own lives being played out in the decisions that we make. The numbers are still coming. The story is still being told because, if it's the book of creation, then, and we're still in it, it's still happening right now, right? There was once a great a rabbi, his name was the Recombine, actually, and once he was confronted by a man, not a nice guy, right? He was a bit out of the fold, right? We'll say just to be nice. And he was confronted the Ramban, the Nachmanides, about his issues, his own personal issues. And the Ramban, he says, let me tell you something. And he opens up his book, and actually went to Parshat Hazinu. Actually, all our lives are in Parshat Hazinu, the second to the last Parsha of the book of Deuteronomy. And he opens up Hazinu, and he started reading in Parshat Hazinu this whole guy's life. Not only past, but present and future about this guy, right? Blew the guy away. He says, everybody's life is still in the Torah. We just don't know it. We just can't see it. But here's the idea. Creational science, they call it, okay? The Torah is still is the creative forces. The letters are energy fields. Ella Fitzgerald. I think I shared this with you, right? If I didn't see it on a Mythbusters, I'd never be able to share this with you. And don't ask me. I don't watch Mythbusters. I don't know where I was at what point in time, and all of a sudden I'm on a Mythbusters where they're going to test that whole thing about, can you say a vibration that breaks a glass? Right? Because we know Memorex, is it live or is it Memorex? Oh, we remember that commercial, right? And so they wanted to test it out. So I got a speaker, and they hit a certain vibration. They put the glass, and the speaker vibration broke the glass. But they needed to do it with a live voice. They had to get a rock star. They got a real rock star. I'm like, a rock star? Really? Yeah, they got a guy with a really good voice, but he was a rock star. And he went for hours trying to get a vibration. Finally, I had to take a break. He came back. Finally, he did it. He was able to actually do it. Vibrations have tremendous effect. The letters are primordial energy fields that have tremendous effect. The words we say have tremendous effect. And definitely if you connect them in the Hebrew sense. Okay? So therefore, like I say, we don't understand the Torah. We don't know what the Torah is until the last 5 verses. That really, there'll be a time where we're going to rejoin with what's through all of the stories that we read and the mitzvahs. There are much more hidden layers until we finally hook up to the primordial energy fields that the Torah in its raw form, okay, that it's in. They say in the end of days, and I'll end this off here, that tzaddikim, the righteous, will be in the Garden of Eden. And all of those who study Torah will be in the Garden of Eden. And the letters will be above their heads, and the letters of all of the Torah that they learn will be dripping secrets from the letters of those things, okay? Anyway, so we have an intro, okay? Practice the letter Beit. When you're going to sleep, you close your eyes, practice the closed door, the letter Beit. Beit, okay? It's very powerful, okay? It goes more and much more, okay, the teaching, all right?